joined here to discuss this because as we develop as a country, as we develop as a community, there is an increasing need and recognition for women as drivers of the economic development. So we're aiming to explore the crucial role of women in economic growth, the benefits of empowering women in various sectors, and by addressing gender disparities and fostering an inclusive environment, we learn that we can accelerate progress towards achieving sustainable developmental goals. Through this webinar, participants will gain insights into the importance of investing in women as a catalyst for sustainable economic development, as we also learn about practical strategies and interventions to advance gender equality and women's empowerment in their respective contexts. By harnessing the potential of women as agents of change, we learn that we can accelerate progress towards achieving inclusive and resilient societies. So this webinar will be broken down into a few bits, and we'll have somebody guide us through them. But we need to keep in mind that our objectives are to raise awareness about the importance of gender equality and economic empowerment, to explore the linkages between investing in women and sustainable economic development. And just as we do that, we'll also share the best practices and innovative approaches for empowering women economically, as we identify challenges, opportunities in promoting women's economic participation in entrepreneurship. Finally, we would like to spark some dialogue as we promote discussion and collaboration among stakeholders from various sectors. So we will have our moderator, Janani, guide us through this. I have been lucky enough to work with Janani. He's dedicated to advocating for gender equality and social inclusion. He is a Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Advisor at the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, KCIC. Through his career, Janani has worked with a diverse range of national and international organizations, spanning countries such as Uganda, the US, and Kenya as well. His work has encompassed both humanitarian response and development programs, allowing him to gain a comprehensive understanding of the multifaceted challenges facing marginalized groups. Janani also has a bachelor's degree in public administration, a postgraduate diploma in project planning and management, a certificate in gender and women's issues, and a master's degree in governance and ethics. And who better to moderate this session than Janani? Everybody welcome Janani.
Thank you so much for having me, Wanjiru.
Most welcome, Janani. And you can go ahead and introduce the panelists for today.
Yes. Once again, I'd like to thank you and the management of ASEC for trusting me with the responsibility of moderating this session, which is on a topic that I find so very important to me, something that the world at large needs to pay more attention to. We'll get into the detail of the discussion a little later, but for now, I'd like to introduce the panelists that I am so privileged to be working with them today for the discussion that we'll be having shortly. First, I'll start by introducing Lydia Owenga. Lydia Owenga is a seasoned entrepreneur that has over 14 years experience, an organization that is active in the biogas space. The organization began its operation in 2013 and has worked with different development partners today. Some of the milestones achieved are feasibility studies with the Obasanjo farms in Nigeria, the United Nations Biogas Training Project in Somaliland, and currently a biogas pilot project on Paygo in Kenya. She has a passion for renewable energy and she enjoys working with the communities towards achieving better livelihood. You're very much welcome, Lydia. Our second panelist for today is Naume Kirongo. Naume Kirongo is very passionate about supporting African entrepreneurs as they provide sustainable solutions to our continent's biggest challenges. Currently, she leads Enterprise Development Partnership at the African Management Institute, a Pan-African business development support organization that has so far supported over 50,000 entrepreneurs from across 39 African countries. Naume holds a master's degree in investment finance describes herself as an educator at heart. She also is a mother of an active young man who inspires her to make the world a better place. You're very much welcome, Naomi.
Thank you.
And lastly, our panelists for tonight, we have Dr. Frida Kirera. Dr. Frida Kirera is a seasoned finance and accounting professional with experience spanning over the course of 1 decade. She has worked with various industries, including nonprofit, tech solutions, and healthcare. Currently, she is responsible for managing Hever's agent portfolio, ensuring compliance to donor guidelines and regulations, budgeting, grantee capacity building, grant monitoring, and financial reporting. She holds a doctorate degree in finance, master's in business administration, and a bachelor's degree in commerce majoring in finance. Frida is also a certified public accountant of Kenya and a member of the Institute of Public Accountants of Kenya. Fueled by her desire to see change in the world, she believes in being part of a cause that is bigger than herself. She finds a cause that is bigger than herself. Find a cause that is bigger than you, and you will find where and why. That is quoting from what she takes as a very strong slogan. Frida, you're very much welcome. Frida, do you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Yes, thank you so much. So this is briefly introducing my panelists, and I will take it back to Wanjiro, where she will take us through the other component of today's event. Thereby, afterward, we'll come back with the panel questions, and our panelists will be responding to those questions. Over to you, Wanjiro.
Thank you so much for that, Janani, and thank you, panelists. I think we have a room full of change makers, a room full of very powerful people today. So as we talk about what we're doing today, we also want to say who it is that's hosting this webinar today, and that's coming from ASEC, the Association of Startup and SME Enablers of Kenya, which is a membership-based association that brings together and represents interests of ESOs, entrepreneur support organizations, as we provide a key enterprise service to Kenyan startups in order to scale our growth and impact. So here at ASEC, our vision is to be the voice and support the startup and SME enablers in Kenya and beyond, as well as to advance entrepreneurship as a key driver of economic growth and social empowerment. Our mission is to promote business incubation or hub activities in Kenya through collaboration like we're doing today, empowerment like we're doing today, and increased public awareness. I'll pass it back to Janani as we begin our panel discussion. I want you all to know that you can also send in questions in the chat box as we continue. After the panelists finish answering the questions, we'll collect a few questions and they can answer those as well. So let's get started. Back over to you, Janani.
Thank you so much, Wanjiro. Just to remind our audience, today we have 4 sets of questions that we'll be asking our panelists, still on the same topic. And each of the panelists will be responding to each question. And I think they can provide their perspectives, answering from different perspectives on the same questions. And just to not to waste time, we'll be moving on to our first question for today, which is how can investment in women entrepreneurs contribute to sustainable economic development? And what are the key benefits for both local communities and the broader economy? And to respond to this question, I will start by inviting one of my panelists, and that is Lydia, to respond to the question. Afterward, I will also invite other panelists. But for now, Lydia, you're very much welcome to respond to the same question.
Thank you very much for this. For me, where I sit, I will say one of the main or the large population of women are entrepreneurs, both formal and informal. So if we look at women being empowered or investing in women, it is something that will go a long way. And on the other end, also improving the livelihoods of most of the people or the communities, because you find most of the main caregivers are women in our communities. And so if they're empowered with their small or informal or formal businesses, then that means the livelihoods of the people or the community can be improved, and families. So if we look at that at large, then it means even if the businesses are informal and they are grown and they become formal, that means opportunities for more employment, and that means eradication of poverty. So it can go without saying that investing in women is something that can be very sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lydia. I strongly agree with you. Actually, we always speak about unemployment, and yet the kind of businesses out there and the kind of entrepreneurs that are supported to also support job creations are always limited. And so, paying more attention by investing in women entrepreneurs would be one ways in which we can actually address the complaint of unemployment, because women's businesses also do employ people. And if we support women and employ women, and support women through entrepreneurship and invest in them heavily, I believe we are opening doors for more employment coming through those businesses. So thank you so much for responding to that. I will invite Naomi to also respond to the same question from our own perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Janani, and thank you everyone who gave us their time. It's really an honor to be here. So just to quickly introduce ourselves, AMI is a BDS provider. We are a Pan-African organization, and I'm really excited to share some of the perspectives we've had from working with thousands of SMEs from across the continent. 49% of the SMEs we work with are women. So really excited to bring our insights and data to this conversation. So I think I choose to believe that most people in this room we are asking ourselves, how do we support women rather than why? I choose to believe that most people in this call are already convinced because this has been happening for many years. And most of us, maybe in our own initiatives, are working to support women SMEs. But to answer this question with some of the data that we managed to collect as AMI, recently we launched a gender report. So we looked at the thousands of SMEs that we work with and disaggregated our data based on gender so that we are able to compare. And we found that, number one, women are creating more jobs, but they are creating more jobs for women. So I think that's a case to why gender inclusion. Another thing we saw is that women are upskilling women and they are upskilling also other people in their supply chains. Just to give you an example, there's a lady who told us she has a dairy factory in Machakos, and she told us how she had to upskill the boda drivers who deliver her produce to various kiosks and retail stores in Machakos, and how she was training them and upskilling them. So we are seeing that women are also upskilling others who tend to be women, but also their supply chain. And finally, an interesting thing that we saw is women are dominating in the agriculture sector, at least in our programs. Most of them are in ag. And if we are going to have a future food secure Africa, I think this green shoot data is showing us that supporting women actually leads to food security. In at least in our programs. So that's what I'd say for now. Back to you, Jamani.
Thank you so much, Naomi, for those submissions. And I did like the component of the gender report that you just launched. And I think there is something that we can learn from it, also to make a case about women entrepreneurs providing employment, especially to women. And I think we can use that to make a case. And when you talked about women being the majority employed in the agricultural sector, that is absolutely true. But I think investment in women also should, go beyond agriculture, because agriculture, as we all know, which actually employs 70% of women in Kenya, is also a bit climate sensitive. So any alteration in climate might have to render 70% of women out of livelihood. So investment in women entrepreneurs like we are talking about is something that we need to expand and we need to promote so that women can be employed in all sectors. Thank you so much. And now let me invite Dr. Frida to respond to the same question from our own perspective.
Okay, thank you. I do agree with my panelists. As Lydia said, most entrepreneurs are women, and already currently most people on this call, as Naomi has mentioned, are supporting women. And also the reason as to why we support women and what's the benefit that the women have in terms of either in the community or for the whole economy as general. One of the things that I've seen in the women-led businesses, one is in terms of social responsibility. When it comes to people working in agriculture, they'll tend to use mechanisms and systems that are friendly to the environment. Like I saw a case of a woman-led business in Makueni where they have a revolving mechanism for drought-resistant seeds. So after every harvest, then the people with the seeds then give the seeds, their produce to the chama, and then the seed goes around the community. What that has done in their small villages, it's impacted in terms of the finances they get from their produce. They don't only consume them locally within the household, but also sell them to the marketplaces. So then that means when you empower a woman, like the saying that says, when you educate a woman, then you've educated the entire village. So from the thought of one woman-led business to actually start a seed revolving, like a chama, has an impact in the entire village. And also the other thing is in terms of economic empowerment. As you've seen, most women, when their businesses are doing well, they tend to invest in their families, they invest in the community, and that has a ripple effect because then it has a multiplier effect on other businesses coming into the industry and that are coming into the sector. And also currently, there's a lot of conversation on the green economy. Most contributors to the green economy are women. From where I sit in the CCI industries, our biggest, almost 70% of the businesses are owned by women. And one of that sector is fashion. And they have a big contribution to the industry. They have innovations on how they do their clothing. They could there's recycling of textiles. So they're able to get the old clothes that are disposed, recycle them into a new textile that is then used to create a new produce. And that particular cloth comes into the market as a fresh product. And at the same time, it has an impact in terms of how does that feed into the environment, the sustainability of the environment at large. Thank you. Back to you, Chinani. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I can relate so much with some of the points that you just put forward. And I think it is true that investment in women is like investment in the communities. I think I strongly agree with that. And I can relate and I can see from what my mother actually has done for me with the little investment that has been done to her. I could completely actually agree that investing in women is actually investing in the communities upon which she is living. So thank you so much for reaffirming that, plus the key points that you just mentioned. So we will be moving in to our second panel question of today, which is intersectionality plays a crucial role in addressing the diverse needs of women entrepreneurs, including those from marginalized communities. How can investors and development agencies ensure that their strategies are inclusive and considerate of the intersecting needs of the population of women? So to answer this question, I will start the other way around. I'll start with Naomi. Naomi, please step forward and respond to this question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Janani. And I think it's a good question, and it would be interesting to also hear what other people are doing in terms of the ecosystem enablers in this call. But from where we sit, I think the most important thing is to start with data and evidence. I think that ensures that we are not, even as we design programs, we are not assuming things. So getting data, be it in form of surveys or other things, and getting evidence even from other initiatives that have been done. I think the second thing when it comes to women entrepreneurs is making access easy, and really removing those obstacles that exist. You know, I was speaking to another woman SME the other day, and she does chicken, and she was telling me how, you know, the reason I started this business is because my kids would always come to me. They need money for school trips, money for pens and pencils, and they'd never go to their dad. So I needed something that can economically empower me, and I was looking for something that I can easily do. So making access easy is really critical. The other thing is that at least we've seen and are doing is offering flexibility in terms of even time. When you think of things like, for instance, when to have programs or when to have a session or when to have calls, depending on the intervention we're talking about, are you scheduling that during a time when people are doing homework, or they might say it might be easier for me to do this when the kids are in school? So I think that's another thing, offering flexibility. The fourth thing would be, I think, building networks. Women really appreciate networks. In our programs, we have something called pods. They are sort of small groups. And of all the offerings in a particular program, most women SMEs say that the pods was the one that was most resonating with them, because they were able to have offline conversations and really build relationships. So I think building networks is really critical. And finally, I'd say, and almost like a charge to everyone, is not just supporting women directly, but building the ecosystem. And almost back to the point I had on data and evidence, looking at what has been done, and can we improve on each other's interventions and build the whole ecosystem in general, and move over from just supporting one-on-one businesses. So those are my points, but like I said, I'm eager to hear what other people also are doing in the chat.
Yes, thank you so much, Naomi. I particularly like 2 points, like every point you mentioned. 2 stood out for me because I could relate them to the work that I'm doing. And that in terms of offering flexibilities to women and then improving access for women. I think these are 2 critical areas that women still lagging behind. And I think that has affected the general empowerment of women, because access to most of the productive resources in Kenya here, this is one thing I've noticed, especially land. It's still very low for women, and that affects a lot of initiatives that women might want to do to empower themselves. For example, even if they cannot own land, or maybe even access land, they cannot access a loan, because land is one of the things that is considered a very strong collateral. And in terms of improving flexibility, you could even invite women and men for a workshop that is very empowering. But if you don't look at the critical gender roles that women play, sometimes you'll find that it is only men attending if you don't pay attention to those things. And so flexibility is really very important. And thank you so much for mentioning that. Now I will turn my attention to Dr. Frida, who I am requesting to come respond to the same question from our own perspective.
Yeah, I agree with what Naomi has said. The issues are usually cut across, but what we'd like to, as she has mentioned, what could be done differently is supporting of the entire ecosystem, as opposed to supporting a particular one SME. But I think for me, what I would say that the investors and the development agencies can do that is different, especially for our sector, is widening their funnel. For instance, most investors and development agencies will want to do the traditional sectors, which are education, technology, healthcare, agriculture, and recently climate change. And for our sector, which is a creative industry, there's a handful investors who are willing to support the CCI sector. In the recent concluded Circular conference, one of the fund managers was a panelist in one of the forums, mentioned that they only invest in goods and services that we use every day. And I remember asking them, what are those goods that you say we use every day that you can only invest in those particular goods and services that you used every day? And the same thing with the traditional, which is transportation, education, technology, healthcare. But then our argument back as people in the CCI was, we watch TV every day. We watch things on YouTube every day. We listen to radio. That is an everyday thing that we do. And so my ask to the investors and the development agencies would be, kindly widen the funnel in terms of investment. That will then also it will have another pot of investment. And also remember that 70% of the businesses within the CCI are women-led businesses. So I think for me, that would be my contribution to this question. Back to you, Chinani.
Thank you, Doctor. I couldn't agree with you more. I think for investors to limit themselves to the traditional sectors, investing in it, I think that would be a way of excluding some of our population from it, because different populations, based on their needs and based on areas that they associate with, they have different investment areas. And I think investors, for an inclusive investment, they should be looking at all the different areas where the population are investing, especially with women. So I strongly really agree with you. Thank you so much for that. And I will now invite Lydia to respond to the same question from our own perspective. Lydia, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Junani. I can't agree better with my other panelists. But to add on to what they've said, especially when you talk about data, I think it's something that will be very major when investors and development agencies collect data, for them to be well informed, because you realize that most of the time when the agencies come in, they come in with an already designed program, a program that they want it to work in a certain particular way. So if they had collected data earlier on and understood what is the actual need of these entrepreneurs, then they will have something that caters for their need, something that is a program that is tailor-made for them, that they will fit in. Because when we look at like marginalized communities, assume there's a program that is running, maybe let's say in Nairobi, then it is designed in such a manner that when you look at it vis-a-vis in an area like in Kakuma, then it cannot fit. You find now when it comes to these investors, then this kind of category are like cut out. They may not fit in. So I'll go with the issue of data, collecting data before they come up maybe with programs or investors come in, so that they can be able to like know what is it in particular that can work for a certain community. Because these marginalized areas, there's a lot of difference in culture. From my experience, like when I'm one of the milestones I said, when we are in Somaliland, you realize that there was really no attention totally for women. So if you were to go with an already designed program in a region like that, then you'll end up not having anything for the women. So I think that will be my contribution to that. Back to you, Janani. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Lydia. I strongly agree with you that we do not pay, like a lot of people or institutions do not pay attention into collecting and analyzing data that should then help to inform their investment or their programming. And I think that ignoring that aspect of it has also somehow contributed to exclusion of certain groups from, from benefiting from their programs. So I think collecting data and analyzing it to inform your investment or programs, I think it is very important. And thank you for mentioning that. Now we will proceed to question 3 of our program today, and which is to the panelists, could you please provide example of successful investment programs or initiatives that have specifically targeted women, and could you please outline the outcomes? And to respond to this question, I will then start with Dr. Frida.
I think you have a different question on the screen at this moment. Maybe you could go back to the initial question.
Yes. I don't know. So this, I think, should be, because the presentation is not being done from my side. So I think this should be the question that we could respond to before we go to the other one. So let me actually give the question of first. So looking at what, looking ahead, what are the most promising opportunities for investment? Is this the, I think this should be our third question.
Sorry, Janani, I think I skipped this question. This is the question that's supposed to be correct.
Okay, so, all right.
Sorry
So
about
I'll ask, it's okay, I'll ask again. So for the panelists, could you please provide example of successful investment programs or initiatives that have specifically targeted women? And could you please outline the outcomes? And I will start with you, Doctor.
Okay, I think from a company perspective, we've invested in a couple of investments, but I think the one that was purely, we had one that was a young women creative fund that was purely targeted to young women within the creative industries. And in terms of what was the outcome for these businesses, one, we were able to recoup 100% return on investment. Reason being is because when you invest in women, one of the key things they do at the formative stages is to understand how should their financials look like, what is their repayment plan, and what duration do they have. And they are very open when it comes to repayment. Someone will come and sit and say, this month was supposed to pay back maybe 5,000 shillings, but here are this is my cash flow, this is my balance sheet, this is my bank statement. I'm not able to do this repayment. They are very upfront when such instances happen. And like when unlike other instances where you'll find people are not very willing, they're not forthcoming in terms of how their business is operating. And also the other thing that we saw for these businesses is in terms of their repayment. One was they are very willing to say what is their challenges, what have they, the challenges they're experiencing. Secondly, we had a quicker payback time, because then if their businesses really flourished within the duration of the investment, and they were able to create it led to a lot of job creation for the people within the industry. People in fashion, they're able to get additional hands, because then the challenge that we had in the sector was, I am the creative, I'm the fashion designer, I'm the one who knows to do the design, I'll do the stitching, I'll do the procurement, I'll do the selling. So then within this program, they're able to run a fully fledged business. They could sit down and do what actually they are meant to do, because then they're the creative. Their work is probably, if you are in fashion, your work is getting the designs ready. Then that really helped to grow their businesses, because then they were able to settle down and just do what is it that they're essentially supposed to be doing, which is being creative, and leave then the stitching, the procurement, the accounting, the marketing, the communication, the visibility to a totally different department within the organization. So yeah, we've had, that was a very successful program. Back to you, Janani.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for sharing that wonderful example. And I believe the audience plus everyone who was tuned in today can actually listen to this example and actually learn something from it. And I think there's a lot to learn from it, and some of them that can be replicated within different environments. So thank you for sharing. Now, to the same question, I would like to invite Naomi to respond to it from our own perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Jan Nan. I was almost murdering your name. Sorry. I can think of a couple of programs, but one that's top in mind is one access to finance program that we did in South Africa. And the reason why it's a unique program and key learnings for it was, one, it was customized and it was a women-only access to finance program. And then two, it was actually the BDS, the support was linked to finance itself. I think that's usually when you're working on access to finance programs, it's easier to work with the finance there or very closely linked to the support. I think it increases the success. So we supported 60 women SMEs, and just some of the impact we had from the program were, let me put it really quickly. The figures we had, 48% of the women increased their revenue within 6 months. And then, and I think this is an important metric, 100% of them said that they feel more confident. And I think confidence is a key thing when it comes to access to finance for women. So they felt confident about approaching funders and understood funding requirements. And within 6 months of the program, we had 17 of the 60 women SMEs actually access finance. So I think the key learning there for us is where we can have the finance very closely linked to BDS. And then number two, customization, which is really back to data and understanding the needs for women. Back to you, Janan.
Thank you so much, Naomi, for those wonderful examples you have shared. And I just don't know how ASEC actually has organized it, because some of these successful initiatives might actually draw a lot of the audience to reach out to you for more learning, because these are successful initiatives that can be replicated in other areas. So I hope that ASEC will take note in how to connect the panelists later with the audience who might actually want more information on those initiatives that they can actually try to emulate. So thank you so much for sharing. On the same question, now I will be inviting you, Lydia, to try to respond to it from your own perspective.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, when we look at programs that have been there, most of them are just open, but very few are specifically for women. And even as I had mentioned earlier, the programs come already designed. But there's this one program that I was privileged to attend some times back. It's called Ongoza. The Ongoza was an acceleration program, and they were specifically just looking, they were targeting women. So the program was more like, it was more tailor-made to what an individual entrepreneur was doing. So we were several entrepreneurs, but they were like narrowing down and getting to understand your business and what is it exactly that you do and where are the areas or gaps that you may need assistance on. So apart from that, also the program was very open in the sense that it went more beyond the entrepreneurship. It taught more about work-life balance, which is something that most women actually struggle with. And they had this area they were calling a gender lens. So the gender lens that they were looking at, they were teaching us how to have the gender lens within our enterprises, and even them themselves, they were practicing it, because even during workshops they would invite you, and if you had a child who's below 5 years, they were actually catered for, and even a caregiver. So it was like very diverse, and in a way it made the women very comfortable, because sometimes you have to travel and you've left your child back at home. So I think it was a program that I'll say was very successful, because among all the women who attended it, their business are running very well as we speak. So I think, yes, there are some specific programs that are very good, and if they're looked at and they target women and very different areas that really are pertinent to women, then they're very successful. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lydia, for sharing. I must say this. A lot of programs are intended to empower women, and that is in itself an investment in women. But there are key considerations for when, if an organization is working with women or a project is working with women, there are some key considerations that must be put in place so that you run a successful program, the one that will be more beneficial to women and the one that will have a good impact on women. In this case, what you've shared, like improvement in the businesses. And I think a lot of organizations don't pay attention to the key smaller things that you must put in place to work with women. All the examples of these successful investments that you've talked about have actually been projects that made it very successful. And I'm particularly interested in ensuring that I'm appealing to you, the panelists, that so this successful initiative that actually probably most of you actually were part of it, you could document and share so that people and other institutions and other projects can also learn from it. And so that we can also, widen our support to women and we deepen our impact for the programs that we run for women. So thank you so much for sharing. We will now move to our fourth and last question for our panel discussion for today, which is looking ahead, what are the most promising opportunities for investment in women-led businesses? And how can we ensure that these investments are sustainable and scalable for long-term impact? And to respond to this question, I will go back to you, Naomi, as the first respondent to this particular question. Thanks.
Okay, I was really hoping our investment expert will be the one who will take this call, who will take this question. But I'll go for it. Or the fund in the room. I think that's did I get her name right? Yeah, it's not on my screen anymore, Dr. Frida. No? But I think what we've seen in terms of promising investment activities, I'll let Dr. Frida talk about directly, but what I could talk about is we have seen, and through evidence again, we have seen that business development support, at least for women SMEs and for SMEs in general, is working. We've seen it's closing the revenue gap in terms of business revenue gap between women if you disaggregate between male-led businesses and female-led businesses. We've seen that women-led businesses that are supported are growing in revenue, and that revenue gap is reducing. And we've also seen some green shoots around access to finance, where particularly for us in Western Africa and South Africa have seen that women-led businesses are accessing more finance than their male counterparts, although those ticket sizes are smaller. And a lot of that is highlighted in the gender white paper that I talked about, that I encourage everyone to read, because it has some interesting data that you could plug into the offerings that you have. So we've seen that, and we've seen some green shoots. So for me, what I'd say is we have, at least for business development size support, we've seen that when we support women-led businesses, these women are growing and they're accessing finance. In terms of what are these exact investments that these women are getting into, I'll leave that to Frida.
Yes, thank you so much, Naomi. I think from the examples you gave and from the points you made, I also was thinking, how can we collectively, as a SME support organization, come up with evidence from the women that we support? Because some of these supports that we give to these women, and some of these supports are actually in terms of loans. And where I'm working at Kenya Climate Innovation Center, we've also seen that the loan repayment by gender is actually on the other side of women. Women are paying more. When it comes to loans that are being provided for them, women are paying more. So how can we collectively document this evidence we present to the bank, so that the bank now start to think beyond actually considering some of the assets that they would consider as a strong collateral, which actually limits most of the women from accessing loans, for example. For example, women's ownership of land is low, for example. But if we can present a case to the bank that, actually women-led businesses actually do pay loan better than men-led business. So that would be a strong point. And actually, you just you just trigger that from the presentation you made. So I think this is something which is very good. And let's respond to the same question. But this time I will invite Lydia to step forward and respond to the same question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, if we look at what we have currently, is that there is a wide crop of women entrepreneurs, incubation program and acceleration program that these women can access. So this makes them better skilled in their businesses. And now if we were to look at investing in this kind of women, then it means there is a return on investment for the investor that is going to invest in these women. So on the other hand, most accelerator programs are also now trying to work very closely with investors, so that there's that gap that is closed. It has been there for quite a while, because people will go through incubation programs or acceleration programs, then they don't have access to the finance. So if these two programs, maybe the acceleration and the investors marry each other, so that by the time an entrepreneur is coming out from an acceleration program, then they're able to access finance almost directly, because they were able to develop and improve their business during the acceleration program. Then it's something that can really go as a long-term impact. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Lydia. I think I agree with you that accelerator programs do need to work hand in hand with investors to be able to, provide more opportunities for women. So that's undebatable for sure, and we've seen it working in most places. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Frida to answer our last question for the panel discussion today. Doctor?
All right. I can't agree more to what the panelists have said. As we've seen, and I've heard you agree that when it comes to investment in women, in terms of their repayments, they do their repayments very promptly, and their returns are very high. And also in terms of job creation, they tend to create more jobs compared to the other businesses. So in terms, one of the challenges that Naomi has spoken into, and you've also mentioned, is one of the challenges is assessing finance. And for our sector is actually more difficult, because then our sector does not allow traditional financing does not apply to us. I'll give an example of a film producer, or the people who go to watch plays at KNT or Allianz. You see, someone has done a script. They need finances to do their script, but then the creative cannot walk into the bank and say, I have a script, I'm going to have 5 shows on this weekend, each ticket is 2,000 shillings, and at the end of this show I'm able to get X amount of money based on the capacity of the hall, and I'm able to repay you back. So then for us as HIVA, what we do is we come in to fill in the gap, because then the gap is in terms of, one is really the biggest challenge is in terms of financing. So we come in to fill that gap, and that is actually not being addressed by the traditional banking. And the other thing is we also do support in ideation. When someone has an idea, we support ideation, and an idea is not a collateral. But then we've had to do innovative financing mechanisms to actually support the industry, and to make sure that these businesses, we support them from ideation, including business registration, including setting up of getting your business permits, the operational cost. Because then these people, what they sell is, what they have is a skill that we cannot quantify at that moment. Because when you see someone do a script, you cannot actually place value at the moment into it. It's an intangible asset. And so we've had to develop mechanisms internally to value the intangible assets. and we invest in those intangible assets, because then that is the only way that the industry can grow, because then the traditional banking does not absorb what we do. So I think there are so many opportunities within, not only for women-led businesses, but also for other businesses. But also, as a pointer, is investors don't invest into women-led businesses just by the virtue that you are a woman. One, that will open the door when they are women-led, when they are women structured programs or funds. But then also your business equally needs to be evaluated to fit it to be an investable business. So then one, being a woman is an advantage, but then also at the back end, you need to work on your business, because then your financial modeling, your being investor ready is still cut across. Just that the genderless then gives you a higher chance of getting that particular investment. Yeah, back to you, Trinani. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Doctor, for those wonderful submissions. To our very last question of structured question for the panel discussion, I think we will go into those unstructured questions that are coming in from the audience. And I believe over time, when during the discussion, and I believe there were areas that the audience needed more clarification. There are areas where they need to ask questions to get feedback from you. I think this is the time now, and we will be moving right straight into the Q&A session, where the participants can then ask questions. When I look in the chat box, I see the questions have been coming, but there's still few. I expect more questions to be coming in from you, the audience, and feel free to type your question to the chat, or you can also raise up your hands and we'll give you the opportunity to unmute and actually ask your questions. So 10, I have a question for you. How do we proceed in from now? Because I see the questions are still few, but there's one question that particularly belongs to ASEC, not my panelist. And this question is, how does one become a member of ASEC? I believe someone from ASEC can answer this question before we now turn to the panelists, where the audience will ask questions related to app, and I actually will give you the opportunity to ask your question. But for now, I think 10 or someone from ASEC can answer the questions that we have here, which is, how can one become a member of ASEC? Before we can now turn to the panelists.
Okay, thank you very much, Janani, for that. And I think I'll take that question. And for the audience, what it takes to become an ASEC member is you need to be an entrepreneur support organization. I'll give an example of Dr. Frida and what they're doing. So this Dr. Frida's organization supports creatives, entrepreneurial creatives in Kenya. And one of the things is you need to be already supporting more than 20 entrepreneurs within the entrepreneurial ecosystem. The other thing is you also need to have been supporting, or rather in business, for more than 12 months. And have supported not less than 20. The other thing is you need to be legally registered in Kenya. We are a national association, and we accept membership from across the country. So those are the three main criteria points that we look at: are legally registered, supported not less than 20 entrepreneurs, and also been in business for more than 12 months or not less than 12 months, and be an ESO. I'll send our page on our website for more reference. Back to you, Janani.
Yes, thank you so much, Brian, for responding. That's so far the only question I see that is directed to someone from ASEC. And thank you for responding to that. I think it is clear now for the people who want to know more information about becoming an ASEC member. And I see also Naomi has also shared with us the report, the gender report, which is in the chat, and I think the participant can actually access from there. Back to the question that is particularly directed to the panelists. There is a question, I think, Evans or Court, your hands are up, and I am going to unmute you so that you can ask your question.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. First of all, thank you for the opportunity, and also thank you for the presentation. So my question is, in terms of offering, or in terms of offering opportunities to women-led businesses or organization, let me say that. What kind of percentage do you consider when you want to at least support these organizations? Is it or for these businesses? Let me say, is it 100%? Maybe in terms of membership, is it 100% women, or what kind of percentage? Is it 70, or it should be just purely women-led, or not even women-led, but with membership? So that one, I will be very glad if you answer it. Then second to that, will you work with them? Maybe, let me say, you identify a certain business that is women-led, then can you work them from scratch until they become maybe in a way that they can stand on their own? Thank you.
Yes. Evans, just before you go, is your question particularly directed to one of the panelists or to someone
Yeah,
from
one
ASEC?
of the panelists, not FASEC.
Okay, okay. So in answering this question, I would just ask any of the panelists to step forward to, I'm not going to start with one. I'll just ask any of them to respond to it. And I think Frida is ready to answer the question.
I can respond from my experience and what we do. One, we don't look, it doesn't need to be 100% women owned. We look at 60% ownership, but then also we need to see the level of day-to-day operational work for the women-led. We don't want to invest into a business where it is 60% owned by the woman, but then in terms of managerial, in terms of responsibility, in terms of oversight, then that is not present. So we look at the ownership, not entirely 100%, at least 60%, but also what is their level of involvement in the business. And also there are times we do consider where it's less percentage, but what is the level of involvement? Because then you could have a silent partner, but then a silent partner who in terms of the initial capital contribution, then gave them 70% of the business, but then they are a silent partner, but then you have the woman at 30%, but then they're doing 100% of the business. So really it's a case by case basis from our perspective. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for responding to that question for Evans. I am looking at the chat box and I have seen...
He had also asked a question in terms of, do we support them from that to the end? One of the other things that we do is we do support businesses, because then our sector, I'll speak from our sector, there's a lack of the business skill within the sector. So we do support the businesses that we invest in. We provide them capacity building in terms of, do they have the right finance policies in place? Do they have the right systems? Do they have the right HR? Do they have the right communication, communication and visibility for their business? So we don't only put money to the businesses, but also we support them in capacity building. That could also form part of the investment, or also could be financed properly through a grant. So usually we don't just give and let you go. We do support the businesses. Thank you. Back to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Doctor. When I look at the chat box, there is someone who is saying, I've heard you mention there are businesses you are supporting. How does one join the support? Is there an application that an entrepreneur can make? So in particular, I'm not so sure who the question is directed to.
I'm happy to take it. So for us, it's based on, we have a couple of programs that are open that you could participate in, and it depends on what level you are at. I would really recommend that you follow us on social media to just see, because we have different programs for different types of businesses. Not all our programs are women, only for women. So we have over 80 programs, and we would really recommend that you follow us on at least LinkedIn or Instagram to just see what would be appropriate to you. But what we offer is business development support in the form of capacity building. And maybe Frida, you can talk about your programs as well, because I know they have an access to finance component.
Okay, yeah. For the same with us, it depends on the different programs and projects that are being run. So then every project is different, has its own requirement. So I think, as Naomi has said, for us is just check through the website and see which opportunities are available and which fall within your need. So yeah, it depends. We don't have like a registration where we have people waiting to be onboarded to a program. We just, when a program arises or a project arises, then we make it available and you do the application. Thank you.
And there was a direct request that was sent to me, so not everyone can see from the chat box. And it's about getting your contacts, because I believe from what you've been sharing, there is already a growing interest from the audience. People want to contact you for several reasons, others for what you've just been talking about. Maybe they want to see how you can support their businesses. So I'll leave that to you to try to respond to the audience on how you could be contacted. Like that applies to all of you, the panelists.
So for us, if you follow us on social media, we're on LinkedIn, Instagram, every social media platform, I think, African Management Institute. And for myself, if you're keen to discuss more, I think LinkedIn is best. So I'll just put, my name is Naomi Kirungu. I'll rename myself, and that's my LinkedIn profile.
Lydia?
And
Lydia,
finally, our link, yeah, you can check us out on www.bystarlimited.com.ke. That's our website. You'll be able to get our contacts, both mail and calls.
Okay. And finally, Doctor, I'm not so sure if you were able to share your contacts or how people can contact you.
Yes, I've shared on chat.
Okay. So with this, I don't see any other questions coming in. That means I can now temporarily hand over back to Wajiro and to speak to us about the next step.
Thank you so much, Janani, and fellow panelists and everybody who's walked in and participated in this webinar today. I think I also forgot to introduce myself properly in the beginning of this. So I'm Wanjiro Kinyanjui. I'm the Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Advisor at ASEC. This is a very big step in our strategy for gender equality in the association. And the next step that we would like to take is to link a survey here in the chat box. We'd like to just bridge our capacity gap over at ASEC, realize what it is that people know, what it is that they need to know, and the things that we need to take action on in order to create a gender inclusive association and sustainable ecosystem. So once again, I am extremely grateful for everybody taking their time today. I've linked the form over to the chat, so everybody can go ahead and click on it and answer it for us kindly. I'll also follow up and share it with all of you via email, so we can collect the findings, and in that way, then I can create a validation workshop where we can talk about the findings and talk about a way forward as an association and as people wanting to be part of the association. And that will lead us into being able to create a gender strategy by which the entire association can abide by, so we can have a gender inclusive ecosystem. Once again, I am so very grateful, and thank you again to everyone, to Dr. Frida, to Lydia, to Naomi, Janani, and every single person that joined us here today. All right, and that will be it for us. May you all have a beautiful, beautiful Tuesday wherever you are in the world. And let's just keep working towards a gender inclusive world and ecosystem. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.